Chelsea Perkins. She's 35 years old. She's from Alexandria, Virginia, which is not far from Washington, D.C. She's a veteran of the United States Coast Guard. Chelsea Perkins may be her government name, but in the online world, she is known by a different one. That name is Selena Savage, and she's no longer in the Coast Guard. She was a model who posted content on the website OnlyFans. That's the subscription-based site where creators can post content and then charge users for access. And many of the accounts can have very risque content, to say the least. On Instagram, Perkins identified herself as a cam model. Perkins' last post on Instagram was on December 9th, 2021. I want you to remember that date. I will bring that up in just a moment. Earlier in that year, 2021, on March 6th, Perkins drove to Ohio to meet 31-year-old Matthew Dunmeyer. According to court documents, Dunmeyer and Perkins go way back. They both went to the same high school. Heading into the weekend, Dunmeyer had told a friend that he was going to meet up with a woman who was in town for the weekend. In fact, his boss saw him get into a car with a woman, and that woman was driving a white car. On March 6th, the two, Dunmeyer and Perkins, went for a walk in Cuyahoga Valley National Park. That is a beautiful park. Take a look at some of the views. Just a quiet place where people in Ohio can get away from the hustle and bustle of Cleveland and Akron in the northeast part of the state. On March 9th, a few days later, around 11 o'clock in the morning, hikers found Dunmeyer dead. He had a single gunshot wound to his head. At the time, Perkins was nowhere to be found. During the investigation, police did speak to some hikers who were in the park, and they remember on the day that Matthew was murdered, they heard a gunshot. And not just that, they passed a woman who was later identified as Perkins, who seemed lost in the woods. And on top of that, they noted it was odd that she was wearing knee-high boots walking around a national park. Not exactly something you would wear when you go for a hike. Now, Perkins eventually made her way out of the park and then drove across state lines to Michigan to a tattoo parlor. Eventually, she drove back home across state lines again to Virginia, where her husband lived and also owned the white car that Matthew's boss saw him getting into before his murder. It took several months to arrest Chelsea Perkins. Police say eventually they were able to line up Matthew's cell phone data with the location of an Airbnb rental that Perkins had booked for the weekend that she was in Ohio. Also, Perkins' DNA showed up on Matthew's body, as well as on a water bottle that was near his body after she shot him in the back of the head. Now, Perkins was arrested December 10th, 2021. Remember, I told you to remember December 9th of that year because that was the last day that Selena Savage posted on Instagram. As I'm reading you these details, you're probably thinking to yourself, what took the authorities so long to arrest Chelsea Perkins? Because the evidence just really lines up, certainly in hindsight. But during the 5 months the investigation went on, this story took an even more shocking turn. A little more than a month before Perkins was arrested, a woman was shot in northeast Washington, D.C., and the shooter, according to the Justice Department, wore a brown vest and brown baseball cap and carried a cardboard box to the door of the home, and they knocked on the front door and shouted, "UPS!" They then shot the woman who answered the door. This was the shooter. Her name was Tommy Lynn Dunmeyer. She is the mother of Chelsea Perkins' murder victim, Matthew Dunmeyer. Government prosecutors say that Tommy Lynn and her longtime partner, John McQuillan, drove to a house in Washington with the intent of shooting Chelsea Perkins. The couple had grown frustrated by November that no one had been arrested for their son's murder, and they decided to take matters into their own hands.